All right, so I guess this is a viewer's comment, but well, first of all, I want to test out our Twitch stream for AIX DSP, and looks like that's working, so I'm going to get off of there. I saw this come up from Glenn's channel, SMG, Spectre Sound Studios. Sell your Helix, get the quad Cortex, but it's a viewer's comment, so you guys got to go and watch all these viewers comment. These are awesome. But I'm going to skip these a little bit, and Glenn's probably going to give me some crap about this, but I'm going to go check out his what he's got to say here.
$299 of SMG for that, to mark that off. I mean, like, that is kind of a big number. Just want to thank you so much. Even you could see that.
All right, I'm just skipping to this part. I want to see it.
Here's your subscriber bonus. I guess you
okay. Today's people don't buy a new way to think.
Where are we? Come on.
Absolute.
I mean, it's right there in the clickbait in the title.
Oh, dude, tough call. I mean, like, the quad Cortex is an absolute.
HELIX floor info.
Oh, dude, all ears.
There's actually a guy asking, Glenn, is the quad Cortex worth trading my Helix floor in for? If you remember, Neural DSP's quad Cortex was actually on our vaporware watch for the last 2 years or whatever, but it actually come out. Glenn had one on his channel. He was testing. Hey, Calder. So it's here, and I don't know anything about it, but let's see what Glenn has to say.
Is the quad Cortex worth trading my Helix floor in for?
Oh, dude, tough call. I mean, like, the quad Cortex is an absolute beast. You know, the Helix is really good too. I don't have any problems with that. The main advantage I think the quad Cortex has, besides the quad processing engine where you can load up a bunch of different amps, is the amp matching capabilities.
Okay. We don't know that quad anything means anything. It could be that the Helix still has way more DSP, or it could have way less. We don't know. That's just a quad processor. We don't know. It could be a quad Celeron for all you know, right? We don't know what's in these things. And even if there was like a super powerful processor, as Reaper has shown, you can do a lot with the DSP without eating too much CPU. So I don't think that part matters. The amp matching, I think that matters. I think that if you own a Helix, though, you have. Do you get the Helix native for? You can get the Helix native for cheap or free when you own a Helix, and you could definitely do your amp matching on your computer. So I don't know that matters, but it could. I mean, that's probably handier on that piece of hardware. I don't know.
Processing engine where you can load up a bunch of different amps is the amp matching capabilities. So if you want to keep adding in new amps and, you know, downloading packs and that kind of stuff and keep experimenting, that sort of thing, you might want to check out the quad Cortex. I might actually be doing an amp pack based off my collection here. That might be really cool.
Yeah, don't even try it. Okay. I'm not here as a Line 6 apologist. You guys have heard me rant about the dumb things that Line 6 has done over the years, but I really think that their DSP is good. And I mean, you may or may not like the amp side of it, but the Helix got everything right as far as I'm concerned about the dual path, where you need one path coming out with the speaker simulator on it that can go to your PA system or whatever, and you need one path coming out without the speaker simulator on it that can go out to your amplifier. And that's something that Line 6 has gotten very wrong over the years, but the Helix and the Pod Go do this correctly. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Neural does too, but the Helix also has a harmonizer, and we'll see if they talk about this, but having those expression pedals built in, that's a big deal to me. I mean, yes, you can plug in an expression pedal. In fact, you could say it's more reliable to be able to plug in your own, because if it breaks, you can just put your own one in there. Then again, the Helix probably has an extra hole for another expression pedal, so I don't know. But let's see.
Been talking about it anyway. Hopefully that might happen a little bit later this year. Oh no, here we go again. Musicians making money. Look out, Marxist dude, your head's gonna explode.
Autotune is not great.
All right, well, I guess that was that it? That may have been it. let's see. How do I say which is my Twitch? I guess this is it right here. Let's see. Okay, well, that might have been a little clickbaity there, Glenn. It looks like he's not really saying sell your Helix and get the quad Cortex. I guess okay, whatever. So I thought this was gonna be a big long one to respond to, but it's not. Of course, here we go right next to this. Auto-tune is not great for rock and metal, but I don't see the problem with the bit of Melodyne. Sure, you get the best take possible, but even great singers need a bit of tuning to compete with today's standards. Now, I'm going to say, regardless of what Glenn says here, that saying auto-tune versus Melodyne in this context is a distinction without a difference. They're both doing the same thing. Basically, they're taking your auto-tune notes and trying to push them more in tune. I way prefer the direct editing capabilities of auto-tune, though it's still glitchy as hell after 2 decades of development. Jumps octaves all the time, glitches all over the place. Melodyne, I don't like how you can't directly edit the stuff. I don't like that after 10 years of Melodyne and complaining about it, we still have the disappearing S's bug. I do love ARA, and especially ARA2 and Reaper. That is an awesome way to get your to do your plugins. I'd like to see ghosting, ghost clips and stuff from Melodyne. Actually, you know what? Never mind, Melodyne. I'm not going to tell you what you should do with your stuff, because maybe we'll just make something better. So, anyway, that's really going to be it for Glenn's thing. But there was another video that I wanted to check out, and it was, are you using sidechain wrong? Another clickbait looking thing, but are you sidechaining wrong? I think that's what. Okay, there it is. Don't make these sidechaining. Look at this. See all these? It's like everybody copies the same video, you know? Don't be stupid on sidechaining because you've been doing it wrong. Okay, this guy looks really sure about it. Let's check this one out. Oh, you know, before I go on, there's something funny on this guy's channel, Jason Sadites or something. I don't know. He did a test of the Neural DSP versus the Helix, and it turned out that people preferred the Helix's sound. So I know a bunch of people are going to cry about that. I didn't understand what all the hype was over the Neural DSP stuff. And remember, I am no Line 6 apologist. And all you guys, you hate me all you want, but I like the sound. And I'm going to say it. I like the sound of Bias better than I like any of these things. So, whatever, sue me. But I never understood the hype. Everybody was saying that this neural stuff was just so amazing. And I remember trying it a couple of years ago, and I didn't really like it. But I'm sure it's fine. But I just don't understand the hype. And, okay, good. So Alex is working on our TikTok. Anyway, so let's see. This one is called Don't Be Stupid on Sidechaining, in all caps, because you've been doing it wrong. This guy is definitely sure of this, so let's just check this out. I haven't seen this thing, but there's like 50 of these videos right now, and look, oh my god. I'm sure somebody's going to freak out if I just pause I'm dead. I'm going to lose my YouTube channel.
This video is brought to you by Let's Synthesize Academy, the #1 place for practice-oriented courses for serious music producers. Hey, Dan Larsson here. Welcome to the newest Synthesize Sunday episode. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about sidechaining. Now, sidechaining is a lot more important thing than you might think. It's just, for the groove, for the pumping effect. If you want to achieve some really nice, clean mix down, especially.
So he's talking about when you, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that we're doing, but with these EDM guys, they make that kind of sound with sidechain. So let's see what this is. But I don't want to be stupid on it. So
on the drums, if you want to achieve like clean and punchy drums, sidechaining is the essential tool. So come with me. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about this topic through this little groove.
This guy's stuff sounds huge, man. Okay, so show us how we've been doing it wrong.
Okay, so first of all, the first thing that I want to talk about is what not to use for sidechaining, and that is a compressor. Honestly, I don't like to use compressor for sidechaining because it affects our sound in a way that I don't really like. So you don't want to compress your sound, or if you don't want to compress your sound, only just ducking that part you want to just, remove from the sound. Compressor is not the best and not the...
This is a bold claim. Like, we're gonna get in trouble because all of our compressors sidechain, and we do it for this reason. But maybe I'm gonna learn something because I've been doing it wrong.
Most ideal way to use. So just simply don't use compressors. Okay, so what I would suggest you is to use a volume shaper or LFO tool or anything similar, that does the same. Basically just ducks your volume. Now you can do
You mean like a compressor?
this manually, for example, in Ableton, just use a utility tool and automate the volume knob on it. This is a little time consuming, but
I heard that Skrillnex or whatever guy, one of these guys, these EDM guys, he allegedly draws in all the ducking by hand. I probably don't believe it, but I've heard that.
If you are on a budget, this is a very nice thing to have. Okay, so now you have the tool that you really want to just use. Now let's talk about the purposes of sidechaining. So the first thing that you want to achieve, like a sound that made famous by Benny Benassi's Satisfaction, if I remember well, that is the first song. A regular sidechaining or a regular ducking kind of thing is more than enough. But if you want to step further and you don't want to duck the whole sound, only just a certain frequency range, you need to step forward and you need to use a multi-band sidechaining effect or multi-band.
Something like our AIX DSP multi-band compressor or our AIX DSP dynamic EQ sounds perfect, but they're also compressors.
Volume shaper or whatever it is called. And you may ask, why would I use that? Now,
Because it's a compressor.
first thing is, if you don't want to achieve that very hard ducking sound, which honestly I'm not a big fan of that, you just want to cut the low end of your sound, to make room for your kick. And that way you won't perceive that ducking effect, but you can make a whole lot of difference in the final mix down. Your drums will be able to cut through the mix a lot better and everything will be just a lot snappier and punchier. Okay, but what about if you are a bass heavy producer and your kick drums or even your snare drums have cool and very harsh and very loud transient? The transients are very high frequency focused, so you really want to take care of the high frequencies at the same time. So you don't only want to just duck the very low end of your bass sounds, but maybe you should care about the very highs, because most of these
then you would use
bass sounds
AIX
have
DSP's
lots of
dynamic
high
EQ,
frequencies.
or
So this is where this little dude, the chain shaper, comes handy. Let me show you how to use
DSP's
that.
multi-band
Okay, so as I
compressor.
showed
And
you
then
this
just
little
take your
groove,
whole high end and turn the ratio to how you want, turn the threshold how you want, attack, and we even got the punch control of that.
if you want to learn more about audio production, click here.
Thanks,
So
dude,
the
for
bass
making a commercial
sequence
for our stuff.
contains lots of high frequencies, so what I would do is just use an EQ8 and chop off the very highs. So for the next thing, just drop this little Max for Live plugin, which honestly I really like. So this is a chain shaper, it is called chain shaper. So basically this is a volume shaper kind of thing, but what is cool here is if you click on this knob, you can set up different settings for 3 different bands. So you can set different settings for the low.
So what have we been doing wrong about this? Is that we're not doing it to specific frequencies, but I mean, that's exactly why we made these tools. I don't know. That's pretty cool, EDM, whatever. But let me see if some of these other things. Okay, so here's another one. Sidechaining, you're doing it wrong. Look, Glenn has one. I bet it's right. Let's see what this guy has to say.
Hi, I'm Willie from Barely Alive, and today I'm going to show you guys how we sidechain with Volume Shaper. Again.
We are
producing music. First video we uploaded on years ago, and to this day I still get a lot of comments on the video with a will explain the volume to hit full volume and reach their full dynamic potential without distorting in the master. Traditionally, this was done using an actual compressor that would be routed to use an external audio source like a kick drum to trigger the threshold of the compressor. This technique was popularized on dance tracks like Call on Me by Eric Prides and Satisfaction by Benny Benassi. And these are extreme examples where sidechaining was used as a creative effect. Another way this was used was by radio DJs who wanted to duck the volume of the music whenever they were talking. You won't even notice the sidechain, other than relying on a plugin that does this, has always been Cable Guy's Volume Shaper. The reason we love Volume Shaper is because it has a nice clean interface, it's easy to save presets, and we've had the most success using it in terms of timing issues that some other plugins have. Just to clarify, the current version of Volume Shaper is version 6, which is available as part of ShaperBox 2. So technically this is a ShaperBox tutorial, but all the same concepts apply, so no matter what version of Volume Shaper you have, this tutorial will still be helpful. So now I'm going to show you an example of how we typically use this plugin. So this is a very basic dubstep loop I made using Volume Shaper. Now here it is without any sidechaining at all. Does not sound as good, does it? Now there are two main steps you need to get this working properly. The first is the Midi routing, and the second is drawing the envelope. So for the Midi routing, I have this set up so that every time the kick and snare hits, it's going to trigger the envelope inside Volume Shaper. So it works exactly the same way as a standard compressor would work. If I alter the kick and snare pattern, the envelope's going to follow it. Now what I'm going to do is delete everything and start from scratch and show you how to set up this routing, because it can be kind of tricky. That's why we use a template like the one in the video that we uploaded recently. So first of all, you need a MIDI source, and we always use a drum rack for our kick and snare, so this drum rack channel is going to be our MIDI source. You might be one of those people that uses audio, and that's fine. If you do that, you'll just need to make a separate MIDI track that has the MIDI notes lining up with your kick and snare, so you can use that as a source. We prefer using the drum rack because you can easily swap out the kick and snare at any time, and it makes this a lot easier, the whole routing thing with Volume Shaper.
Pretty good idea.
Now you need to have something that you want to sidechain. In this project, I want to sidechain this entire mids group. So I'm just going to drag an instance of ShaperBox onto this group, and then I'm just going to set that aside for a second. Now, go into your group and create a blank MIDI track. Put it at the top here and rename it something like Trig or Trigger. This is going to be your trigger channel, which takes the MIDI signal from the drum rack and then sends it to the Volume Shaper. Click All Ins and select your drum rack channel. In this case, it's 2 kick snare. You can see it up there. Now hit In, then click No Output and select Mids. And you'll see here it says ShaperBox. If it says something else, that means there's another VST on this channel that's getting MIDI, so you need to select it to go just to that ShaperBox and not any other channel.
Okay.
And that is it. The next step, you need to set up Volume Shaper. So next, open up ShaperBox, and this is a preset that I've already set, so I'm going to do Init, and this is what you'll see. So click Volume Shaper, and now here's where you draw your curve. Now you want to keep this first point at 0 or at the top, because I'll explain that in a sec. So just click to draw another point, right click, and then drag this point down to here to the bottom. We're gonna make another soft point here with a left click, and then right click up here to make that point, and that's your basic curve. Now the reason why you need to start your curve at the top left is because when this clip is done playing, it's gonna go back to this first point as like the default volume. So basically, when there's no drums happening, you want everything to be at maximum volume, so it's important to keep that there. Now go to LFO mode and make sure this is set to beat. Go to length, set this to quarter note, and then click MIDI trigger and click on one shot. And that's it, you're done. Your track is now sidechained.
That's
now you
really
can save
cool
this
for electronic
ShaperBox
stuff, but you know, I don't see how I'm doing it wrong. This is not going to work for an actual drum set and a bass guitar, so that's cool though. I might have to go look at that Volume Shaper. That looks like a very handy tool. All right, so now here's another one telling me I'm doing sidechaining wrong. Let's see. Oh, look at this one. It says wrong. That one actually, okay, well this is the one that kept showing up in my YouTube.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So let's
Nate
just see
here
what
from
this is.
Protoculture and Shadow Chronicles. Welcome back to Sonic Academy.
Protoculture and Shadow Chronicles. Are you serious? Protoculture and Shadow Chronicles, like the podcasts. Are you really? Where's I don't see any Macross symbols in here. Let's see. Interesting.
And today we are talking about sidechaining. Now, especially in the electronic music production scene, as a producer, one of the first things you learn how to do is to sidechain your kick to your bass. Now, for most of you, it's a fairly simple concept. In the old days, it used to be done with a compressor using the key input, whereby you'd send a signal into the compressor. And a good example of this is in like radio production, for example, where you'd use the signal of a voice, for example, to activate a compressor. And the traditional sense kind of helps you understand a lot of easy tools that make it very quick and simple for us to do this. Vengeance multiband sidechain, for example. But the thing is, in using these sometimes without the proper understanding of what's going on, I see a lot of mistakes that occur quite often, especially when I'm doing mix downs for clients. And I see this happen quite a bit. So I want to kind of just run through some of these mistakes and how to correct them when you are using sidechaining in your tracks. Let's check this out.
20 seconds in. Are we gonna?
Right, so just to recap the basics, obviously the sidechain, you employ this method because your low end in the track takes up the most headroom. Low frequencies always take up the most volume or the most headroom. So what happens when you have a bass line that's...
I can't, it's hard for me to go on. His name is Protoculture, but what is this on his desk? That's from Star Wars. Now come on, man. That's treason.
In the same frequency as the kick drum, when you're playing them together, those bass frequencies tend to double up on each other. And you've got a finite amount of volume or headroom in your track, and if you have bass frequencies doubling up on each other, it just makes it incredibly hard to, when you come down to the mastering phase, to push that through a compressor, because your compressor or your limiter is going to be squashing all those bass frequencies down because they're just too loud. Turning them down is not really going to help either, because then they're not prominent enough. You duck the bass line out of it so that you have a more balanced amount of bottom end and everything is clear in that low end. So I'm going to do this the old school way quickly, just to kind of
I'd really like to see these mistakes.
Channel into our chain info, them sitting in really quickly.
I don't watch this. Come on.
Just turn these off. Let's take a listen.
Yeah.
So you can hear that bass line coming in now. We can change these settings around a little bit here, like control the makeup, for example. But notice how much of the bass line is actually being cut out with these extreme settings. So the first problem that I want to come to, you generally don't have this problem when you have this traditional setup. Because of the kick being the trigger, it's not generated by timing or volume shaper. I'm going to look at the first example now. We'll come back to this one in just a sec. So the more traditional way nowadays, using some of the sort of easier tools that we have, is to, on our bass sound, for example, just insert a shaper box, which is the one that I use. Okay, so that's better, but the issue here is we haven't entirely solved the problem, and I'll tell you why. We'll render the kick. This is just the default kick from kick 2. Let's render the bass sound, and you can see, because of the length of the kick, this section here is still suffering from the same issue as before we sidechained it as well. You're still getting a build-up of bass sounds or bass frequencies, because the bass is playing when the kick is still playing.
Well,
now, I know this sounds simple, but you'd be amazed at the amount of times that I get this issue with tracks that are sent to me for stem mixes and mastering, where they just haven't paid attention to the length of the kick. So the quickest way to solve this is to just shorten your kick samples if you are rendering it to audio, to make sure. I typically have the kicks fade out in sort of 4/4 stuff like this from off.
Wait, what's the mistake? I still don't see the mistake.
So the first beat, you only really need that initial beat to
This is why I got to show this guy.
get
Team
the
Minnie, man.
sort of essence of the kick coming through.
I know everybody's on Team Lisa.
In some cases, stylistically, you may want something a bit longer, But then you have to look at it quite objectively and
sure the band
make
will like it
decisions
when
as
I
to what you
change
want
the
to
length of their drums
proceeding
all
from there. So that's a lot better now. We don't have any of that overlap, and we're going to take a look at just what happens quickly as well with a metering.
All right, well, I haven't seen what mistakes that I'm making, but I'd like to see what else is going on wrong, because this guy says you're doing it wrong. This guy's saying you're doing it wrong. Super clean side chaining, punchy drums, and cleaner mix. Let's see, because I'm doing this wrong. Oh, look, you ever notice, like, it looks like everybody's making the same video. Common sidechain mistakes and how to fix them. Avoid these beginner mistakes. Let's see.
Sidechaining. Are you doing this properly or not? Today we're gonna find out. Basically, if you listen closely to the kicks in some songs,
tell me how
you can
it's
hear
not.
that
I'm just tired of
some more bright sidechaining issue. And the reason why this is happening is because people are using sidechain compression, which is turning the volume of the whatever it is sidechaining of the track down immediately. There's obviously a little bit of the delay, because if you would just immediately cut the volume, it would result in a unpleasant bright
No, that's what look ahead is for.
click because of the zero crossing cut. Not zero crossing cut. The thing is that if you have a sound going like this is a sound wave, imagine this sound wave, and you cut immediately something. If you put a sidechain here, the sound cuts, but because the sidechain is a little bit late, there's a little click left. So I'm gonna present you this
look
right
ahead.
now. I'm gonna play this track, also resampling this without
Okay, so what's the mistake? Let's get to this mistake. I hear the skate park calling me, man. All you guys making these copycat videos.
Okay, so and at the same
let's hear
time
these
here,
mistakes.
let's listen. We have kick here, so I'm gonna show you the shape of the side chain. It has to be a little bit delayed here. It's not like completely to the left,
Use
it's a little
one
bit
with
to
look
the right.
ahead.
So just to prevent from the zero crossing clicking. And what's happening here is, as you can see, there's a little bit sound left from the this music group that's being side trained. And if you listen to this sound, it's a little click. And in different spots, this click is gonna sound differently. Like here's a little bit bigger. If we take a look at EQ, we get this sort of click. We get something here again, and so on. And what's happening is that if you layer this click with a kick, or most of the time snare sounds good, but there's a problem with kick. If you layer this sound, this little click with a kick, it's gonna result in like a loss in punchiness, because maybe the sounds are phasing and you lose frequency from the kick, maybe, not sure, but basically like layering this small transient is making the kick sound just bad.
Again, this is why they have look ahead. What's the mistake?
There's a little bit of loss in punchiness and in clarity. I feel like this kick is losing some punchiness, so I'm gonna just... It sounds much better. So what I did is that I have a drums group. I am sending as an input here, as an input to the sidechain MIDI track, I'm sending the drum rack external instrument that is being set to only trigger the kick and snare. It may be a little bit complex at the beginning, but you don't need to do this, it's just the preference thing. So basically, the sidechain trigger is a MIDI track that is being sent to the music group here and to the LFO tool. And you can place MIDI...
mistakes I'm doing or doing it wrong. You guys all got the same video telling everybody they're doing stuff wrong. Stop sidechaining your kicks. Kenny Beats wrong. I don't know who Kenny Beats is, and I don't think I care. You suck at producing. Alright, all you guys talking a lot of crap. Anyway, I don't know. These videos, I'm not thrilled with them. But it's nice testing out, Davey. It's nice testing out Twitch for AIX DSP. So I guess this was the inaugural video. So thanks for watching. But I think we got to expect more out of people when they're telling us how we're doing things wrong, that they got to get in and talk about wrong. So this one says fix your sidechain compression in 10 seconds. Now, do you think he has the exact same video as everybody else? It's just I'm starting to get annoyed. Sorry.
Hey guys, it's Will from EDM Tips. Just a really or let's take the bass and the cutting press volume envelope here.
Yep.
And you still got that clicking sound. So here is the solution. Now, if you're using a sidechain compressor like this,
set the look ahead.
what you can do is actually tweak the attack and the release to try and get rid of that ticking sound. That is the first option available to you, but there are some issues with it.
Yeah, the kick's gonna be late. Gross.
So you can hear that's now reduced, but that obviously means that the bass isn't being knocked out the way of the kick straight away because our attack's a bit longer. So then there's potential for the kick and the bass to actually clash with each other. So that is the issue with that. Now, if you're using something...
I hate to be a shill, but I would just go get the AIX DSP, multi-band compressor, or dynamic EQ and sidechain it in that way. Use our look ahead, and you don't have to worry about any of this crap of 10 videos saying exactly the same thing and looking very much the same. Anyway, the skate park's calling me. Thank you to my brother Calder for hosting our Twitch stream, but I'm gonna get out of here and